My name is Naomi West. I'm 25 years old, and what I'm about to tell you is not a nightmare, it's my real story. A horror buried under dirt lies and blood-soaked whispers. People always think revenge is a choice, a decision you wake up and make. But sometimes revenge chooses you, especially when the dead don't stay quiet. If you're brave enough to hear what really happened to me in Hollow Creek, keep listening, and please subscribe, like, and share the story to keep stories like mine alive. This story is written and edited by Dark Life Side Diaries. When I was 15, I watched my twin sister die inside the woods of Hollow Creek. Nobody believed me. They said she ran away, said I was hallucinating from grief, shock, trauma, pick your word. But I saw her one moment, she was there laughing, her red hoodie catching light through the trees the next. Her scream echoed through the pine trees and her body vanished into the shadows. They searched for weeks, dogs, helicopters, volunteers, no trace, and then everyone moved on except me. For 10 years I dreamed of her face. Sometimes she was crying, sometimes she was screaming, but most nights she just stood at the edge of my bed staring. That's when the whispers began, faint at first, then louder, and then something terrifying happened. I started hearing her during the day. It began with my reflection. I'd catch a glimpse of her, my sister Noelle, standing just behind me in the mirror. Not rotted, not bloody, just wrong. Her smile twisted, her eyes completely black. She wore the same red hoodie she had on the day she vanished, only now it was soaked from the wrists down. I saw her everywhere: train windows, store security cameras, puddles, and always only me. Then one night I found a message scratched into the inside of my bathroom mirror with her handwriting. I didn't run, they took me. I screamed, smashed the mirror, called my mom. She didn't believe me again, but I knew what I saw. I was the only one who could see her, and I finally understood. She wasn't haunting me, she was asking for help. I began digging into Hollow Creek's history. Not just the town, but the woods. I found dozens of missing persons reports spanning back 70 years. Girls, mostly teenagers, all gone within a few miles of the same trail Noelle and I took that day, all marked unsolved. The town sheriff, Mayor Brett Holloway, had handled nearly every case. The same man who hugged my mother at the funeral, who patted my head and said, "Sometimes the forest just doesn't give back." Liar, every piece of me told me he knew, so I went back 10 years later alone. I returned to Hollow Creek under a fake name, rented a cabin, brought a bag full of surveillance gear and one weapon, a rusted axe I had dug up behind my childhood home, the same one Noelle and I used to chop firewood the summer before she vanished. I knew it was crazy to bring it, but something told me I needed. The first night I heard her again, this time outside the cabin. I looked through the window, and there she was, my sister, standing at the edge of the woods, pointing not at me, the trail, the same trail. So I followed. I shouldn't have. Halfway in, the wind stopped, the birds, the bugs, all sound vanished, and then one by one I saw red ribbons tied around the trees, blood red, fresh. Each ribbon had a name carved in it, familiar names, the missing girls. And then I found the shack deep in the woods, a wooden structure covered in barbed wire and bones, actual bones, and photos of every missing girl, Polaroids bound, crying alive, including one of Noelle. I threw up, my body shook, because standing beside her in the photo was someone I recognized, Sheriff Holloway. The truth came together like shattered glass forming a window. Holloway hadn't failed those girls, hunted them, sacrificed them to something that lived in the woods, an old legend whispered by the locals, the Red Mother, a forest spirit who fed on innocence, who protected the land from outsiders. A myth, a campfire story, except it wasn't. It was real, and Noelle, she was one of its offerings, only she didn't stay dead. I left the shack in a trance. I don't remember walking back, but I woke up hours later, lying on the cabin floor, barefoot and covered in dirt. Carved into my palm were 3 words: finish what I couldn't. That was when I knew she wasn't here for justice. She wanted revenge, and I was her vessel. The next morning, I broke into the sheriff's office. I found the locked drawer easily behind his family photo. Inside, evidence bags, bracelets, socks, hair ties, dozens of trophies. I stole them all, and I left a note. She's coming for you, and she's wearing red. That night he was found dead in his home, his body torn, his throat filled with pine needles, and across his bathroom mirror written in blood, "One down." I left Holloway's house before the sirens arrived. The rain was cold, relentless, soaking through my clothes as I walked, not ran into the woods like I'd done 10 years ago, only this time the trees didn't feel unfamiliar. They felt lived. The forest breathed with me. It didn't scare me anymore. It welcomed me back. I knew what I had done, and I wasn't sorry. Holloway deserved worse than what she gave him, but it wasn't over. Noelle's whisper was clearer now. I could hear her even without mirrors, without photos, without sleep. She spoke when I blinked, when I inhaled, when I was alone. They helped him, they fed her find them. She meant the others, the ones who knew, the ones who stayed quiet, and I knew where to start at. The town library, tucked between children's books and prayer calendars, was a hidden archive. Room locked for the public, but not for someone who knew how to pick a lock with a hairpin, and rage inside were files, maps, notes, a full history of the Hollow Creek Preservation Board. An innocent name for what it really was. A cult of gatekeepers spanning generations sworn to maintain balance between soil and soul. I found a faded photo of their founding members. Sheriff Holloway was there, so was Pastor Jedediah. Morris, the man who baptized me and told my mother God took Noelle early to protect her, and beside him, Agnes Cartwright, the mayor's wife, a woman with eyes like burnt coal and a smile that never touched her cheeks. She ran the Hollow Creek Museum. A woman I once trusted, she'd baked me cookies the week my sister vanished. Noelle. Whisper came again as I traced their faces. With my finger, he wasn't the only one who took me. I circled the names Morris, Cartwright, and two more. Eliza Creed and Henry Valia map fell from one of the folders. It showed 5 symbols drawn in red ink across different forest locations. Like a ritual grid, 5 stones, 5 trees, 5 offerings, and scribbled beneath it, every decade 5 must die or the Red Mother will choose her own. That's when it hit me. Holloway didn't kill Noelle for himself. He killed her because it was her turn. She was the 5th. Every 10 years they chose 5 girls to disappear into the woods. And they fed her the Red Mother in exchange for protection, crops, prosperity, the town's perfect reputation. But something changed when they took Noelle. She didn't break, she merged, and now she was back with me as her link, her voice, her weapon. I spent the next 2 nights staking out the Cartwright house. I watched as Agnes left a basket every evening on the edge of her garden, fresh fruit, raw meat, coins wrapped in linen and offerings. She still believed the Red Mother was with them, still thought she could be appeased. She had no idea the Red Mother had chosen war instead. I waited until the 3rd night. The woods were too quiet. My palms itched like the blood underneath my skin was waking up. Noelle whispered again, "Burn the roots." So I snuck into Agnes Cartwright's garden and dug 6 feet under the apple tree with my bare hands. At the bottom were bones, small, delicate, unmistakably human. She'd buried one of them here, probably a girl no older than 10. I brought the bones into her home and laid them across her dining table. Then I waited. She entered at 1:06 a.m. and screamed when she saw me. Said nothing, just lit a match and threw it into the bowl of oil beside the bones. Fire climbed the tablecloth like it had been waiting. The sprinklers didn't come on. Agnes tried to run, but I was faster. I didn't touch her. Noelle did. The windows cracked, the lights pulsed, and then she began to levitate. I watched as invisible hands slammed her into the wall again and again. Her screams were muffled as if the room had turned into a vacuum. She looked at me, eyes pleading. "Why?" She mouthed. I leaned in. "Because you smiled when they took her. The last thing I heard before leaving was her skull hitting the marble counter." I didn't look back that morning. News broke of a mysterious fire at the Cartwright residence. 2 days later, Pastor Morris suffered a stroke. While giving his sermon, he never woke up, and Eliza Creed was found drowned in her bathtub, though her lungs were filled with ash, not water. Forrest was finishing what I'd started. Noelle's voice was fading, not in fear and peace, but there was one left. Henry Vale, the last name on the list. He lived alone near the edge of Hollow Creek in a cabin built on top of the oldest oak in the region. He was the one who selected the girls. The decider. The documents said I went there at midnight. I wore Noelle's red hoodie and I brought the axe. When he opened the door, he didn't scream. He fell to his knees as if he saw both of you. Whispered, "I told them not to pick her. I told them she was too strong." I lifted the axe and whispered back, "You were right." The night I killed Henry Vale, the sky didn't just cry, it screamed. Rain slammed against the trees like fists. Wind howled through the valley like every ghost Hollow Creek ever buried had finally risen. I didn't feel fear. I didn't even feel anger anymore, just weight like my sister's soul, and all the others were resting on my spine, asking me to finish what they couldn't. I burned the cabin, watched it collapse into the roots of that ancient oak that had seemed too much as the fire devoured the wood and secrets. I saw her, Noelle, standing at the edge of the flames, her hair dripping, face pale, red hoodie soaked to her knees. She didn't smile, she didn't cry, she just nodded, but I knew it wasn't over yet, because after Henry Vale, the whispers changed. They weren't just Noelle's anymore. They multiplied, layered. Like 1,000 voices beneath the soil had begun to stir. That's when I realized the truth. It wasn't just about revenge. The Red Mother had woken, and she wanted more. I returned to the cabin I was staying in, mud crusted on my jeans, blood dried in my fingernails. I hadn't eaten a day, didn't feel the need. My eyes burned skin, hot breath, sharp like smoke lived in my lungs. I passed out on the floor. And that's when the dream came, or maybe it wasn't a dream. A alley stood in the middle of Hollow Creek. The town was empty, silent, every building burned. Every tree blackened. I was barefoot, the red hoodie dripping crimson onto the ash-covered road, and ahead of me stood her, the Red Mother. She was taller than any tree, her body made of twisted bark and roots, her face a hollowed skull with a grin too wide to be human. Her eyes were pits of darkness, but inside them were the faces of the missing girls, dozens of them, including Noelle. She knelt in front of me, the forest shifting around her like a breathing beast, and whispered not in words but in hunger, "You opened the door, now feed me." I woke up screaming, blood dripping from my nose. My fingers burned raw like I'd been clawing at something all night. The mirror in the room was cracked. 5 names scratched into it, not the names of the guilty. My mother, my uncle, 3 classmates, all people who had been silent when I screamed for help, who looked the other way, who moved on like Noelle never existed. Was that what she meant? Was the Red Mother demanding all of them now? No, I wouldn't be her pawn. I wasn't here to start a massacre. I was here for justice, and justice had limits. I packed my things, left the forest, and drove to my hometown. The first name on the mirror was my mother. I hadn't spoken to her in nearly 2 years. She had collapsed into grief when Noelle disappeared, but not grief for losing a daughter, grief for losing control. She had always loved Noelle more. I think she resented me for surviving. She opened the door slowly, saw me, gasped. "You look just like her." She whispered. "No," I said. "She looks like me. I didn't go there to kill her. I went to warn her the Red Mother was coming, and those who let the rot fester weren't safe anymore." I begged her to leave town, to burn the old photos, to bury what she knew. She just looked at me, blank, confused, as if she'd forgotten everything except her own shame. "She wasn't taken," she whispered. "She walked into the woods." "No," I said coldly. "You let her, and I left. I knew then I couldn't stop what was coming." The UAMA Red Mother had been denied her cycle for too long now. She would take one by one, and there was only one thing left I could do: end the cycle, permanently destroy the root from the archives. I knew the origin side of the first offering in Hollow Creek's dark history, a cave hidden beneath the riverbed chapel built on sacred ground long abandoned. That's where the first deal had been made, where the Red Mother was bound. I had to go there. I had to seal her again or die trying. The chapel was silent as I broke through its rotted door, flashlight trembling in my hand. The walls were covered in dead vines and moss, blood stains decades old. I followed the path behind the pulpit, through a hidden stairwell down into the cold earth. There I found the stone altar, 5 handprints carved into it, all of them child-sized bones scattered across the floor, and in the middle of it all, a heart blackened and still beating. I approached slowly. Noelle's voice was faint, now sad. "It's the anchor, burn it." I poured lighter fluid on the altar, lit the match flames erupted, and all around me the cavern began to shake. The Red Mother screamed, not a sound, but a wave of agony that shook my skull. Her face appeared in the flames, angry, betrayed. I stood firm. "You fed on innocence," I said. "Now burn with guilt." And she did. The heart exploded in flame, the vines shriveled. The screams faded, then silence. I collapsed. When I awoke, I was outside the chapel, had collapsed. The air smelled clean, and for the first time in 10 years, Noelle was gone, not in fear and peace. The day after I burned the heart beneath riverbed chapel, Hollow Creek felt like a ghost of itself. The skies were clear, the woods were quiet, not the eerie kind of silence, but peaceful, like the land itself had exhaled for the first time in decades. I drove back into town expecting news chaos, something, but there was none. No sirens, no search parties, no headlines screaming "Chapel ruins found" or "Old ritual site discovered." It was as if the whole town refused to acknowledge what had happened, as if the death of the Red Mother had erased not just her curse, but also her memory. But I remembered everything, and that was the curse I would carry. Noelle's voice was gone, not buried, freed. She wasn't watching anymore. She wasn't haunting mirrors or whispering in my sleep. But I felt her in every step I took, in every breath I inhaled. She'd become part of me, not a ghost, not a wound, but a shadow of strength that wrapped around my spine. And yet something inside me still ached, because even after destroying the Red Mother's heart, even after bringing every last guilty soul to justice, there was one thing I couldn't fix. May it become a weapon, cold, sharp, calculated. I didn't cry when I killed Henry Vale. I didn't shake when I watched Agnes Cartwright suffocate in the air. I didn't feel anything when I stood over the altar that bled black. My hands had done terrible things, not for power, not for pleasure, but still terrible, and so I had one more Place to go before I could disappear for good. Noelle's grave. It wasn't real, just a stone with her name on it, placed by my mother the year after her disappearance. It sat in the cemetery on the north side of town next to an old rotted fence. I went there as the sun set behind the trees, turning the sky blood orange. I wore her red hoodie, the same one I had taken from her room all those years ago. The same one she appeared in again and again. I kneeled in front of the grave and whispered, I kept my promise. The wind shifted, not cold, not warm, just right. I pulled the cassette tape from my jacket pocket, an old one Noelle had recorded when we were kids, our voices giggling, talking about monsters, ghosts, and secrets we swore we'd keep forever. I placed it on the stone beside a red ribbon, then I walked away and never looked back. 6 months later, I live under a new name now. Far from Hollow Creek, no one knows what I did or who I was, but every now and then I get letters, unmarked envelopes. No return address inside. Names, coordinates, stories of other towns, other forests, other girls, other monsters, and I realized the red mother wasn't the only one. There are many like her feeding on silence, and so I sharpened the blade again because I'm not just Naomi West. What happens when silence learns to scream, and my scream wears red. Thanks for watching this video. Thanks for remembering. If you believe in vengeance for the forgotten, subscribe, like, and share this story, because the more light we shine into the dark, the less power it has. This story is written and edited by Dark Life Side Diaries.